All right, good morning, everybody. Good to be with you today. We're going to pick up right where we left off yesterday. We've been talking about the earliest of the Greek philosophers, the pre-Socratic philosophers, the ones who came before Socrates. And most of them are what we call natural philosophers. So they're primarily focused on nature, understanding nature. Specifically, two questions about nature. One, what is everything made of? That's where we had that big, long, complicated term, basic constituent substance. What is the stuff of reality? And we use the little girl as the example. So the basic, yes? I need a bakery. I'm doing something right now. The basic constituent question is, what is the Play-Doh of the universe? And the other issue is the problem of change. What's the little girl of the universe? What's everything made of? And what makes that transform? Like Brandon's given us a perfect example here. Brandon, stand up for a second with your string.
What's up?
All right, so
Yeah.
where did that string come from? What did it used to be?
A bracelet.
Okay, so stand up and show the string. So imagine this is the universe. All right? The pre-Socratic philosophers want to know, first of all, what's the bracelet made of? What's the string of the universe? And then how does it go from being a bracelet to what are you going to make with this? You're going to tie up Brian and Dean Uptake's wallet?
I'm going to whip people with it.
All right, so what transforms bracelets to whips and young people to old people and mountains into sand and all the other changes of reality? We met Thales, who thought everything was made out of water and that there were gods inside of everything that controlled all the change. And then we met Anaximander. We called him the most influential person you had never heard of because Anaximander, without using the word, introduced the world to what concept? God, yes. Anaximander is the first to introduce, at least in the West, anything like what we would call God with a capital G. Not small g gods like the ancient gods of Greece that fight and kill and marry their sister and are strong, but are strong the way Spider-Man is strong, but a capital G God. Let's meet some more of these philosophers. Next one we're going to talk about, his name is Anaximenes. Lived from about 570 to 526 BC. And Thales started out with saying everything's made out of water. That's the basic constituent substance for Thales. And Anaximenes says, all right, Thales, you're close, but you're not right. For Anaximenes, it's not water, but it's air. And just like if I were to say everything's made out of water, I'd be dumb, but Thales saying it isn't dumb. Anaximenes saying everything's made out of air is his best guess based on the evidence that he had, and he's in this first generation of people that are actually using evidence instead of simply relying on stories. There's no shame in coming up with wrong answers when you're the first people to ask the question, and Anaximenes is one of those first people. So is Xenophanes. Well, Xenophanes, we're not going to focus on his answers to the change and constituent substance questions. We're going to look at what Xenophanes has to say about the gods. Xenophanes believes that men, people create the gods in their own image. That when we look around and we try to imagine explanations for the mysteries of the world, we imagine beings who are just like us, only bigger and stronger. He said that if you could go to Ethiopia, that the gods of Ethiopia would be black people. If you go to Greece, the gods of Greece are olive-skinned white people that look like Greek people. He said if cattle and horses could have gods, they would think of the gods as cattle and of horses. that we project ourselves into our notion of the divine, which is another way of him saying that all these myths, from his perspective, are just made up. They're just stories. He does think that instead of the many, many colorful gods of mythology, that there is one true God who's eternal and who's perfect. I misspelled perfect because I'm not perfect, who's eternal, not in prefect, but eternal and perfect. But he thinks this God doesn't actually interact with reality, so you're never going to meet him. He's never going to work any miracles for you from Xenophanes' perspective. But then Xenophanes says something that's super rare in the ancient world and still pretty rare today. He then says, but you know what? I could be wrong. Because he thinks that we can never know anything for 100% certain. That we do the best we can using the evidence that's in front of us, but we can never achieve real certainty about anything. How much of the suffering in the world, whether it be major suffering, war and persecution and genocide, or just everyday, ordinary suffering that happens in the high school. Man, she's talking about me, and they're talking about me, and blah, 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 blah. How much of that suffering could be eliminated if more of us were willing to say, but I could be wrong. If we were willing to let go of the idol, the false god of our certainty, and sort of humble ourselves a little bit and say, but I could be mistaken about even the things that are really important to me. If I think that Ray might be dangerous, I'm not going to hurt Ray just because I think she might be dangerous. But if I'm certain that Ray is dangerous, then if I'm certain that she's a danger, then not only might I hurt her, but I might actually have a moral obligation to hurt her. I would have to protect you from her if I were certain that she's dangerous. Are you dangerous? But she's not dangerous. So, how do good people end up doing terrible things? Because they are certain about things, but also wrong. Xenophanes says we can know nothing for certain. Wisdom is like a voice in the back of our mind that should be always whispering, you could be wrong. So that's the great Xenophanes. What do you see here? What's this? What's this picture of?
A baby.
Baby, yeah, cute little baby. You got chubby baby cheeks, right? You almost want to kind of just smush his little baby cheeks and maybe. Miguel, what are you? Oh, no, if you know who it is, don't spoil. Well, you see the baby, just cuddly, cute little baby, right? We all love babies, don't we? Anybody a baby hater? Antonella, you hate babies?
I don't really like babies.
Antonella likes to punch babies? Antonella, shame on you. Most of us love babies. How does this being become that being? Because, oh, gross. Because these are the same person. That cute little baby you see on your screen, that's baby Hitler. Little less cute, isn't he now?
He's pretty.
He's a little less wanting to cuddle and snuggle and squeeze his baby cheeks. How does that happen? All right? That's what they're not talking about Hitler, but this is the problem. This is the problem of change. Almost nothing about the person in this picture is the same as the person in this picture. This person is much taller, he weighs more, he's got a mustache, not to mention he's killed millions and millions of people. This person is short, no mustache, probably can't probably can't speak very well, and has not killed millions and millions of people. Everything about him is different than him, and yet somehow, he's the same person. The problem of change also raises the problem of identity. So, Derek, how old are you?
15.
15. Okay.
13.
So, you are probably very different than you were 10 years ago, aren't you? 15 is very different from 5. Okay? I'm different than I was 10 years ago, but the difference isn't that. It's noticeable, but it's not as noticeable. The 10 years between 34 and 44, you change less than you do in the years between 5 and 15. But if you look at a picture of yourself that's 10 years old, is it still meaningful for you to say, that's me in the picture? Is that still a picture of you? How? Everything about you is different. Even your parts are different. Even the very atoms that make us up are rotated out of us about every 10 years. There's nearly nothing in any of us that was there when we were born. And yet somehow, changing out all the parts, some sort of sense of identity seems to last. That's the kind of thing that the philosophers are trying to figure out when they're talking about the problem of change. And Parmenides, who lives from 540 to 480, Parmenides has a solution. The solution to the problem of change. He says everything that exists has always existed. And there is no such thing as change. Does that sound dumb to anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why does that sound dumb, Jason? Because you can't. You see changes all the time. Is that a Taki you're eating or a Cheeto?
Yeah.
Cheeto. Okay. So right now, I'm not going to ask you to show us the one in your mouth, but right now the Cheeto in your mouth has changed a lot from what it was like 20 seconds ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah. If Jacelyn offered you the Cheeto from 20 seconds ago, you might want to take it. If she offered you the Cheeto right now, just scraped it out of her mouth and flung it at you, you'd probably not. You want that one, Gabby? Don't be so mean. She's offering you a gift. Why are you so mean? So we see change all over the place. How can this guy, unless he's just an idiot, how can this guy say there's no such thing as change? Well, it's because he's what we call a rationalist. Right? And a rationalist, and a couple of these terms, you might even want to just write them on the side. They're not, I don't have blanks on there, but you might want to write them down. A rationalist is someone who believes that reason, not the evidence of the senses, is the source of knowledge. So, Parmenides has reasoned that there can be no change because there's nothing to explain it. Right? If I'm different from moment to moment to moment, then my sense of self evaporates. He says that's not possible. So he solves it by saying change isn't real. It's an illusion. It's an illusion for him, almost like a hallucination. Could that be? You know, our eyes, our ears, our noses tell us that things change all the time. You walk into a room where nobody has farted, and then someone farts, your nose tells you something is different in this room. There has been change in the room. Parmenides says that's all just an illusion. You're imagining it. Can our senses be wrong? You ever walk down the hallway, and at the end of the hallway you see someone waving at you?
Yeah.
Can I want my hand?
Mm-hmm. And you wave back at them, and then it turns out, Gabby, what happens? It turns out they were actually waving at Brian. Now, how do you feel now?
Stupid.
Oh, it feels so embarrassing. Your eyes lied to you, right? Your senses let you down. Parmenides says you can't trust your senses. Jason says, I see my Cheeto change, or I feel my Cheeto change. And he says, I know you feel that, I know you see that, but your eyes and your tongue are lying to you. You can't trust your senses. Trust what you reason out in your mind. That's rationalism. The rationalists have enemies. The enemies of the rationalists are the empiricists. Empiricism says, wait a minute, you can't discover truth by standing in the corner and scratching your head and thinking really hard about stuff. You want to figure out how something works? Break it open and see what it's made of. Empiricists value sense evidence and experiment as the pathways to knowledge. You want to know why Brandon won't shut up when you're teaching? Just break him open and see what he's made of, says the empiricists. But the rationalists say, no, you can just figure it out. Figure it out for yourself. Two very different approaches to truth. Parmenides was a rationalist. Heraclitus, who lives from 540 to 480 BC, is an empiricist. He is not a rationalist. And he says, Parmenides said there's no such thing as change. Heraclitus says there is nothing but change.